Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Hello, I'm Caroline Hepker. You're listening to Bloomberg UK Politics, your bite-sized guide to the corridors of power. The Labour Party is unveiling its artificial intelligence strategy today. The Shadow Science Minister, Peter Kyle, wants to supercharge the industry, remove planning barriers to building data centres and provide stability and consistency to support the tech sector in the UK. He's unveiling those promises today. In the Tory manifesto, go to page 9, they say that the UK is well positioned to spearhead the AI transformation after Rishi Sunak hosted that first global AI safety summit last November. The party's promising to position the UK to lead in innovation, increasing R&D and R&D tax incentives. So there is, this huge optimism around artificial intelligence. It's actually maybe one of the few areas where there is almost giddy excitement. Remember, the UK saw zero economic growth in the monthly GDP figures out today. Politicians think that AI can transform industries, making public sector jobs more efficient and delivering bumper economic growth in the future for Britain. Remember, it's also UK Tech Week this week. But it does leave AI promises as potentially the magic money tree of this general election. So how seriously should we really be taking these high hopes? We know that the UK does have a unique productivity problem and it has barely emerged from a recession. Optimists and the OECD think that we could be major winners from AI because we're a services-based economy. Labour's Peter Carr has also said that AI innovation can increase the government's fiscal headroom by £72 billion over 5 years. Now, both of my guests on the podcast today think that AI can create double-digit GDP growth, and both think that the government has a key role to play. The Institute for Public Policy Research says that we need to protect workers' rights, though, in the economy from the threat of AI impacting jobs and help to give people the skills that they need to succeed in the next technological revolution. The Tony Blair Institute says that AI should be embedded at the heart of the public sector in hospitals and schools to make Britain the leader in this new revolution. I went through some of these points with Carsten Jung, who's the senior economist at the IPPR, and Jeegar Kakkas, who is director of the Tony Blair Institute. Firstly, with Jeegar, on whether he thinks that AI can actually deliver this £72 billion figure for the government finances over the next 5 years.
I think if the next government embraces AI, it can deliver potentially even more than that. There are two ways in which we think AI can make a massive difference to the public sector. The first is there's off-the-shelf technology that can be plugged into public services to get rid of the backlogs, the waiting lists that are kind of drowning public services at the moment. The second way is to embed some of the modern technologies in the ways in which decisions are made in Whitehall, the operations, and the way civil servants and caseworkers engage with citizens. And I'll give you just one quick example of what's happening right now in hospitals. There are AI systems being used to predict how long patients, when they enter a hospital, how long they're going to be in a bed. And so the nurses and doctors can better manage demand of beds, and that's reducing effective bed usage, effective bed occupancy by 5 to 7%, getting it closer to the 85% safe levels that the government is hoping for. And so even with really simple off-the-shelf technologies, we can begin to modernize our public services, get them on a sure footing, and then prepare for that next wave of bigger savings that politicians are talking about.
Carsten, are you that optimistic about what AI can deliver in the next 5 years?
I'm definitely optimistic about AI in general, but I think it will hugely depend on the exact way we implement it. So in our report, we show that in an optimistic scenario, you can boost GDP in the public sector, but across the economy as a whole, by up to 13% in total. But in a worst case scenario, you could adopt AI widely, but have exactly 0% additional increase in GDP, because if it's simply used to make things cheaper but don't actually produce better output or more output, then we basically lose the opportunity that is inherent in AI. But my second point is, next to that we need to steer us towards this positive scenario, is that it's uncertain how long this will take. So I wouldn't bank on a huge productivity gain within the next few years. We know from the adoption of information technologies that it can take a long time for productivity to really take off. And thirdly, we must not forget, we must not approach this as just a silver bullet to fixing all our public services. We know there are structural problems that we need to fix first before we can really deliver the benefits of AI.
Jeegar, in terms of how much the government will need to invest to get the benefits of AI, is there a figure on that?
So we've done some of the analysis on what government might need to do to invest in AI, and we get somewhere around kind of 1.5 to 2 billion a year to do a few things. First, you've got to make some of the data across different public services interoperable. So you've got to do that basic layer. You've got to upgrade legacy systems to make sure that they're safe, secure, able to operate modern software, modern systems. And then you've got to maintain them over time. So we put a figure around kind of roughly 1.5 to 2 billion a year. But the returns on that, if you get it right, are 20-fold. And even the government's own chief data scientist has said that in early pilots of deploying AI through the public sector, they were targeting a return on investment of around 3.5%. Some of the early returns are 200%.
Okay, but the government and the UK is littered with big projects that have gone desperately wrong. HS2, the upgrade to the NHS IT system. Is the government really positioned to get the benefits of AI? So
this is where we say start with the basic off-the-shelf technologies that can plug into the hospitals, the schools, the criminal justice system, that can help you deal with some of the structural problems that are leading to backlogs, waiting lists, etc. The example of beds in hospitals, there's one trust in Wales that's using this technology right now. They had to do 0 upgrades to their legacy IT systems. Literally plug and play, and now they've got a tool that can help them accurately predict demand for hospital beds. That can really empower nurses, doctors, and ensures that patients get the treatment when they need it.
Carsten, there's also this fear, though, around AI, that it's going to be a new industrial revolution, but we are still arguing about the Industrial Revolution and whether or not it actually lifted living standards for workers at the time and what it did to people's wages. And there's a real fear that there could be mass job losses. What's your view in terms of how you avoid that?
Sure. Yeah, it's actually quite interesting you mentioned the Industrial Revolution, because in hindsight it's of course a huge success, but we saw that at the time wages of ordinary workers nosedived, and it took them decades to recover to the levels they had before. Similarly, female labor force participation dropped massively and did not recover for more than 100 years. So even though technological revolutions can be incredibly beneficial, they can also be very disruptive for many groups. And if you look at the power of generative AI and what it can do, I'm certain it will have a very disruptive effect. And we need to be cautious, not just to chuck AI at every problem and hope for the best. We really need to think about what could be those disruptions and put in place scenarios. You know, it might all turn out very well, and policy doesn't have to do much, but we need a scenario where we have significant disruption, where we need to support people into new jobs, where we need to support automation-proof jobs, and also where we need to think about redistributive effects.
The thing is, the IPPR has also talked about protecting jobs. Is it really about protecting jobs, or surely it's actually about protecting income rather than specific sectors? I mean, nobody wants to do a boring job, a job that can be replaced by AI, surely?
Absolutely. I think it's both. I think it's protecting incomes and making sure people have a safety net in case there is a large-scale disruption. But secondly, I think we need to also manage the transition to whatever comes next. And I think one point to start is to look at what are the jobs and tasks that we really want humans to do. And this is in caring professions, this is frontline work in public services, such as the NHS. It is frontline work in education. So, and we know we have huge shortages there. We have a crisis in terms of care and health professionals not having enough time. So can we use AI to actually free up time of people and protect this human touch that we want people to do? And I think policy has a big role to play here.
Jeegar, how do we regulate artificial intelligence? There are plenty of voices from within the industry who say that they want much greater transparency and far more radical regulations now rather than waiting. How do we properly regulate AI?
I think for the Tony Blair Institute, the way we need to approach AI, making sure it's safe and it works for the economy, it works for people, is not jumping to regulation and legislation, especially because we don't really know how the technology is going to develop over the next few years. Its power capacity, even some of the models we've got now, it's really difficult to know the limitations and the exact extremes of what it can achieve. So what we think about in terms of regulation is three things: investing in people, the processes, and the partnerships that you need to understand AI and then evaluate it, monitor it, and ensure it's safe. So making sure you have the people that know the technology in government mean you might have to pay slightly higher wages, think about civil servant career progression slightly differently, but you need to make sure you have the best talent so they understand what's happening in models. Processes, can we think about transparency over how models operate? Can we get the right data governance structure so that we ensure AI models that are using data, that data is secure, that it's safe? And can we also stimulate investment in safe AI, defensive AI, technologies that can actually interrogate, evaluate, monitor the big large language models that are driving things like ChatGPT.
Do you tax AI?
You don't need to tax AI because it's a technology. I think it's more thinking about how do you tax, what kind of tax structure do you want to, for the type of economy you want, rather than saying this is something bad that we need to tax or punish. It's to say, how do we encourage investment in new technologies that can enhance competitiveness, accelerate innovation? And that's where the taxing system needs to focus, rather than saying this is a bad thing, let's tax it. That's not the right approach.
Carsten, yeah, you want to interject?
Yeah, can I just come in on the regulation point? So a lot I agree with, but also I used to be a financial regulator at the Bank of England, and I think the notion that innovation and regulation are somehow in contradiction is a wrong one. So the UK has really good and effective financial regulation, and at the same time has one of the most dynamic financial sectors in the world. So good regulation is and stability is the backbone of a thriving industry. And also, I agree we shouldn't rush to sort of clamp down or something on AI, but that's not what we do in other sectors either. There is something like called outcomes-based regulation, where you basically, you're clear what things you want to ensure, but you give industry and regulators that apply the regulation, you give them leeway for interpreting it and adapting it over time. And the UK, in fact, is now behind in terms of advancing AI regulation, and the government has helped different regulators like the FCA, like the the ICO and others, has provided funding, but only 100 million to boost up their AI capabilities. That is vastly insufficient if you think of that regulatory budgets are in the hundreds of millions. So we really need outcomes-based regulation, catch up with the global standard, and we need more investment for regulators to do their job.
A final thought on what happens to the UK if we get this right versus getting it wrong.
Sure. If we get it right, then we have safe AI. So safety is, as I say, is the backbone of a thriving industry rather than an afterthought or something we fix later. And secondly, I think it should be preserve the role of humans in the economy. Free up people's time so they can do tasks where the human touch is important. And support this with policy, support this through a job-centric industrial strategy. And then thirdly, make sure the gains are evenly distributed. We know that owners of AI systems will likely benefit hugely, whereas those whose jobs are at risk, mostly in back office positions, their income is at risk. And so making sure the distributive effects are addressed, I think those three things, this is the third thing of what good looks like.
Jeegar, the polling is very much in favour of a potential Labour government. The Tony Blair Institute, obviously founded on the Blair legacy. What do you think that the Labour government is going to do in terms of artificial intelligence? There's so much hype. How can the next government, if it is Labour, let's say, actually deliver on that?
I think there are three things that, at the Institute, we'd look for the next government, regardless of what it is, to do. One, think about how they can use AI to improve public sector productivity. Two, think about how they can use AI and AI-era technology to enhance the competitiveness of the private sector, making sure that we are growing businesses of the future, taking advantage of all the tech startups we've got, whether it's in life sciences, AI, climate tech, wherever it is, that we're growing that tech ecosystem. And three, I think it's making sure that it's taking advantage of AI and its ability to raise everyone's output to the levels of experts. And I think making it a tool for individuals to boost their productivity and therefore boost their wages. I think that's where the next government, regardless of what party it is going to want to focus.
Jeegar, Kakkas, thank you so much for being with me here, the director at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, and to Carsten Jung, senior economist at the Institute for Public Policy Research. Thank you to both of you. AI could help boost the UK economy if, that is, the next government can invest any serious money and also get the regulation right to reap the rewards as the technology moves and develops at a blistering pace. That's it from us for today. If you like the programme, don't forget to subscribe and give it 5 stars so that other people can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or wherever you listen. This episode was produced by James Walcock and our audio engineer was Meredith Frank. I'm Caroline Hepker. I'll be back with more tomorrow. This is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg UK Politics. Listen weekdays at noon on DAB Digital Radio in London.